What's up, guys, and welcome to episode 4 of the Rare Is Us podcast. I'm Ernest Noah Griffith. Auburn graduate Noah Griffith. I recently graduated from Auburn University, and we are back with another episode of the Rare Is Us podcast after a short break. It's been a little while since my last episode in July, but I've taken some time off to focus in on my last semester at Auburn. I did some writing for the Auburn Plainsman, the student newspaper at Auburn. And as you know, I'm a sports writer, but I changed it up this semester and I did some opinion pieces, a series of opinion pieces that I call the Student Etiquette series, where I wrote about how to better interact and treat different minority student groups on campus. And one of those that was really special to me that I got to write about was about disability etiquette. And I interviewed 2 other students with disabilities that look a little bit different than mine with FA to kind of complement my point of view, to talk about some better ways to integrate people with disabilities into the student body, because those experiences are different than what a typical Auburn student may bring to the table. And so I just kind of wanted to gain some empathy and, offer a different perspective a little bit than what some people might have experienced. And so I want to do a little cross promotion today and discuss the article mostly as it relates to FA with you guys. And to do so, I'm going to bring on another FA patient and FARA ambassador to talk about it with me and to kind of put our own twist on it. And so I'm really excited about this episode, something I haven't gotten to do before, and I may do more of in the future, kind of integrate my blog and this podcast together. And so this will be an awesome episode. I hope you guys will stick around for this one. So today I have with me a fellow FARA ambassador, Sydney Dupre from Texas.
Hi.
How's it going, Sydney? Glad to have you.
Sorry.
So Sydney is an awesome disability advocate herself. She does a lot of work on social media, on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. I think you do some vlogs, and she's done some podcasting similar to this one, and even featured Ya Boy on one episode, which was awesome. And then we also met in person at the Cure Face Soiree last summer in Oklahoma City. And as I mentioned, she's also a FARA ambassador. So I'm going to quit talking now. And Sydney, would you just introduce yourself more and talk about some of the work you do as a disability advocate?
Well, hi, my name is Sydney. I am 23 years old and I'm a social media influencer, content creator. I've been on social media for over 4 years now. So I mainly like to not only spread awareness about our rare disease, Friedreich's ataxia, but also kind of normalize what it's like to have a disability. So my content is a lot about FA and having FA, but it's also a lot of just what everyone else posts, because I'm just like that's my dog, sorry. I'm just like everyone else, and that's kind of what I want to show.
Mhm. That was kind of one of my main purposes in this article I wrote on disability etiquette, because I felt like one of like a fish in a large pond at Auburn. Like nobody else around me like used a walker. Like there may be a few people in wheelchairs, but like I felt like my situation really stuck out from others, and I just want to kind of, like you said, normalize it and like offer a new perspective on an experience that's kind of unique. Well, in the grand scheme of things, it's not unique, but like I felt like it was at my university. So
Yeah, no, I definitely understand that. I live in Austin, Texas now, but I grew up in like a very small town in Louisiana. And like being in a smaller town, I feel like there's not as many diverse people, and even a smaller amount of younger disabled people. So it's definitely not normal, especially where I grew up, whatever you want to call normal.
yeah, I get the same thing. Like the first 15 or so years of my life, I was kind of in a smallerish town, like not very familiar with the disability, and then all of a sudden it's me that has it. So just that's why I kind of want to spread awareness and help people understand like both sides of things, and help people, able-bodied people, see the thinking behind a person with a disability, and that like we're not so different. Like I just graduated college. I am looking for a career, and like I said, I grew up playing sports. I drove myself. Like it's not a completely different lifestyle than what you might think. Um, and so when I first wrote this article back in September, I think, um, like I said, it was for the student newspaper at Auburn. Um, I sent it in a group chat we have for the social media team, with the fair ambassadors, and just got a really awesome and thoughtful response from Sydney. So that's why I wanted to have her on to like help complement, what I was, my words and what I say. Um and so Sydney, I kind of want to ask you like what stood out to you about the article, or what did you think about it?
The article, it stood out to me, and it also resonated with me like almost completely. I related to pretty much everything. Um, and being on social media, I do also try to kind of put out that same message, and I it was like perfectly articulated in your article, and like I was like, that's what I'm trying to show.
Hmm.
And it just, the article was a lot of what I had personally experienced in high school and college, and then because of that, it's also what I'm want to change.
Yeah. And so why do you think disability etiquette is like a topic that needs to be discussed, or why do you think it's important?
I think it's important because I feel like most people, like around our age, think that, oh, disabilities are all about older people, right? Like you get old and you get disabled, so they're not really used to being around younger
Mhm.
people with disabilities. And because of that, it's like people just don't know what to do. And like, I don't blame them
Yeah.
because it's not taught and it's not normalized the way it should be.
Right. And I feel like a lot of experiences I had on campus kind of push me to write this. Like going on elevators, like going to class, like I feel like the way people relate it sometimes is like, oh yeah, my grandmother has trouble walking too. Well, like respectfully, I'm not your grandmother. Sorry.
Yeah.
And so like I don't want people to see it that way. That it like you said, it's something you grew up and lose your physical abilities, but like sometimes losing physical abilities doesn't mean you're losing your youth at the same time. Like those are two separate things.
Yeah, that's a great way to say it. Um, I just feel like because people aren't introduced to younger people with disabilities as often, it's almost like they don't they have no idea what to do or like how to act. It's like just act normal.
And do you have any experiences that you've had that maybe um push you to become more of an advocate through social media?
So growing up, I dealt a lot, especially in high school, with feeling like an outsider because I was like the only person that had a disability in my high school or in my grade, whatever. And when I went to college, for me, so I grew up in a small town. We had one high school, like that was it. And then I went to a state university and I was around a lot of new people and a lot of different people. And because of that larger amount of diversity, people started treating me as they did everyone else. And I started to make more friends and meet people and do social things, which I never had the chance to do in high school.
And
And it made such an amazing effect and opportunity. It had such an amazing effect and it created an opportunity for me to like share that on social media, like the difference between being isolated because people don't really know how to act around you versus being accepted for your disability and treated normally. And because of what because of the way that impacted me, I wanted to teach that and share that with the world.
hmm And you had a really good response to one of the things that I talked about in the article that was like sometimes like in awkward situations, people don't know how to act. And it's just kind of the awkward silence. And it's kind of on us to break that, I feel like.
My approach is either one of two things. Either try to like make a joke and like about my disability
Mhm,
and show that, hey, like it's not that serious.
mhm,
Lighten up a little. You're not you're not gonna offend me with every little thing
mhm,
you say. Or I'm like, let me just like talk and like don't give you a chance. Like let me just ramble and like ask you questions, and then you have no choice but to talk to me, and sometimes it works. So
Yeah, like you kind of have to you kind of have to take charge and like people think that like because we have a disability we're so fragile, but like I've had people say to me, "Oh, you're so brave for talking about FA," or like that must be so hard, but it's really not because like it's our life. Like we live that way every day, and so you don't have to like be so particular about what you say to us. Like it's not going to offend us. We know we're disabled. We know we kind of stand out from the crowd, but it's not like it's not a sore topic, if that makes sense.
the inspo porn is like so annoying.
Yeah.
It's like I'm a person and my life, yeah, it's hard and it's different, but everyone's life is hard. You
Mhm.
adapt, and just because my life looks different than the way yours does doesn't mean it's like it's just how I am, you know? Just learn to live with it.
Exactly. Like people see a wheelchair or a walking device and think like, oh, like I need to have sympathy for them or I need to have pity for them. But like, you know, you just like you said, you learn to roll with the punches and that becomes normal for you. Like I don't look at my walker and think like, oh, it sucks that I have to use this thing every single day. Like, I just don't. It's just normal. Um,
Yeah, it's like I'm in a wheelchair, and it's like you said, I don't wake up and look at it like, oh, I have to use a wheelchair today. No,
exactly.
I just get up, get in it, and go about my life.
Like that's helping you be successful in life and adapt to the cards that you've been given. Like there's nothing bad about that. Like I think someone said to me one time, if I didn't use a wheelchair, I'd probably just be sitting on the couch and like watching TV or something. Like that's helping you still live your life to the fullest. And I think people don't quite see it that way. And like for me, I use a walker and a wheelchair, both some depending on how far I have to go. But using a walker for me is like, hey, I'm still like fighting. Like I'm still trying to keep my physical abilities and stay strong. But people see it like, oh, he's relying on that walker. Like that must suck. And I don't know, that's just not how it is. Um,
Yeah, I think so. Two things. one, you were talking about how people see it as like you're using it like to your advantage or whatever.
Yeah.
I want to say I get that all the time on social media that like you wouldn't have followers if you weren't in a wheelchair. Like, probably not. But you know what? That's who I am.
Yeah.
And then I get comments that are like, we get it, you're in a wheelchair, you don't have to say it in every video. I'm like, I'm not saying it in every video. I'm just sitting here,
Mm.
but I happen to be in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not doing it for attention or anything, but it does make me want to embrace and share that I can have a happy life in a wheelchair. It does make me want to share that with the world, but
Mhm.
like I just I shouldn't have to defend it. You
Mhm.
know, I shouldn't have to defend why I'm in a wheelchair or why I have a disability.
Yeah. I think that's part of the platform we've been given to make a difference in the world. And it's unfortunate not everyone understands that, but like there's always going to be people who want to knock on you for what you're doing or what success you have. Um, and that really hits on one of the points that I put in the article. Disability doesn't have to be a limitation. I think, like I said, I'm not bragging on myself, but I've graduated college. I still like drive. I still work out. Like, I still have aspirations for my life, disability or not. And like, disability, yeah, it doesn't have to take that away from me, or it doesn't mean I can't be successful. Um, it doesn't mean I have to, like, it doesn't force me into a place where, like, I have to let that bother me, if that makes sense. Like, I'm not gonna downplay it if it does affect my life very much, more more than just physical. But it doesn't affect your cognition, and it doesn't affect how far you can go in life and what you are able to do. For example, you not only do the work you do on social media, but you travel a lot too. You still get to see the world. You still like to go out, and your wheelchair that you talk about on social media helps you to be able to do that. When you're diagnosed with FA, it does like take you time to recover. Or at least it did for me. But like, um, I never thought to myself like I'm not gonna be able to go to college now, or I'm not gonna be able to like, yes, it changes your abilities and it changes maybe what career path you take, but I never thought like, oh, I'm just not gonna ever get a job or go to school. Like, I never thought that.
Yeah, it's not
So,
like, oh, well, my life is over.
mhm.
Like, no, do whatever you want.
And
You
there's
know, like you have to do your career a little differently, and you might need certain um adaptation, and you might need some help, but like you can still, to a certain degree, do whatever you want to do. You
mm,
know.
and there's more to it than just, you know, a career or a school. Like, if it doesn't, I think it took me some time to see this, but FA doesn't have to put it into your relationships or your social life, I guess. It definitely took me some time to see and rediscover my own self-worth emotionally after I was diagnosed, but that's one thing that I've had to learn about myself is that if it doesn't put into who I am as a person, and it will never will, no matter how much it progresses.
For sure. I used to always, not always, but I would have moments where I would feel guilty for being friends with someone or dating someone. And
Mhm,
I'm like, but like, I'm disabled and I can't do what you can do, and I can't go on a hiking date or whatever. And it took me having to get out of that mindset in order for me to realize that I don't need to be able to do all that. I can still meet people and be friends and date people and marry people, which I will have my 1 year anniversary in like a week.
that's
So,
awesome. Congrats.
but thank you. But it definitely, I had to get out of that mindset
Mhm,
because that is just not true. Like being disabled doesn't stop any of that.
mhm, exactly. And that leads me to the last point that I hit on in the article, which is that I wrote this article more for disability in general, but this also relates to FA as well. And it's that disability is not like an umbrella term, or it's not something that applies like disability. The word disability or being disabled doesn't, it's not the same thing for everybody. Or having FA doesn't mean the same thing for everybody. There's no yellow, there's no like golden path to fighting FA. Like you can, some people will join clinical trials and join the FA community right away. Some people aren't. Like that's not where they want to go with their life. And that doesn't mean that's wrong or they're going about it the wrong way. Like there's just different ways to fight such a complex disease that not only people have different symptoms, but they also have different emotions in dealing with that. So yeah, they're just
I've met a lot of people that have FA and they all have like completely different symptoms and
mm,
abilities and different needs. And like, I never go out to someone with any disability, but even like anyone with FA, no two people are the same.
mm,
And I have also a different perspective because my brother also has FA. And I don't, I guess because we're siblings, but we progress almost identically. And like he's 5 years older, but we kind of progress on the same timeline. But even um like even the way that things affect him and the way they affect me, even though it might be the same symptom, we both have very different thoughts and emotions
mm,
about that. And we want to you know, I might want someone to open the door for me, but he's like, well, I'm strong and I work out, so I can open the door myself. And I'm like, you know, even though we have, like, we're so similar in our abilities,
Mhm.
we still we're our own individual people.
Mhm.
So,
And also, there's no cure to FA. We finally have our first FDA approved treatment, but like not everyone fights it the same way physically either. Like, there's no one medicine or one thing you can do to stop FA. You really can't. And so people cope with that in all different ways. Some people love going to the gym. Some people say like exercise doesn't like completely negate FA progression. That's just fact. Um, and so everyone has different ways they want to spend their time and to use their platform, whether that's, you know, just everyone has different ways of fighting FA, I think, is what I'm trying to say.
yeah, definitely. Exercise can help and be a very great tool,
Okay.
but it's not for everyone. I
Mm,
mean, it is also very fatiguing in itself, and some people get a lot more affected by that fatigue, and some people don't. Like it's so different for every.
exactly. And it's just, you can't be judgmental about other people's preferences. I think that's one of Fear's big values is just not to impose medical treatments upon other people with FA just for that reason. Like what works for one person may not work for another person. That's okay. And I've had to learn that over time. But like even not everyone has to have the same like mobility aid. Like everyone goes about it different ways. Everyone feels differently about how to respond to having FA. We're all just that's all we're trying to do at the end of the day is just we've been given FA. We didn't ask for it. We didn't choose it. It happened. And everyone's trying to respond and find their path forward. And that takes time. But I think you just have to have some grace on yourself and other people as well in that process.
Like, for example, I'm in a power wheelchair, and there's like so many people who are in manual wheelchairs,
Mhm.
or they use walker or whatever, or a cane, anything, and I'm like, sometimes people are like, why don't you use a manual wheelchair? I'm like, I choose to put my energy into other things.
Mhm.
Like, yeah, I can like use all the power I have to like use a manual wheelchair, but I don't want to, you know,
Yeah.
and everyone's different.
And a lot of times that may change over time too. And like I think it's really difficult to make that decision to jump from one mobility aid to another. I found that to be really difficult for me as my disease progresses and maybe I have different needs. Um, and I find it really difficult when people ask me that question too, like, oh, why are you using a wheelchair today instead of your walker? The simple answer is because like I have to go a longer distance. But sometimes like using a walker can be such a struggle. Really, like always having to worry about falling, always having to worry about like bumping into things, like getting through tight spaces is really challenging. And like it's hard to like feel like I'm being judged for that when people ask me. But that's one question I've had to figure out how to respond to. Because like I said in my article, it is okay to ask questions. I always feel like it's better for people to ask me things than just to be silent, like not know what to say. Because people with disabilities, like, even if someone says something that may be stepping on toes a little bit, like, I think one thing I hit on is people who have disabilities can, like, be understanding that it's not so easy to know the right thing to say sometimes. And there's grace for that. If you do say something that maybe was a little bit out of line, like it's not the end of the world.
Yeah, I'd rather someone come up to me and ask me a question that may seem like totally rude, but it's like I'd rather that than you just ignore me, you
Mhm.
know?
Right.
Mhm.
Exactly. Like it's better to also hate the other thing that really is tough for me to deal with is when people, either look at my walking aid and look at me and don't say anything, or they look to like whoever I'm with, like my mom or a friend, and like ask them a question about me. Like right here, I can answer your question. Like you can ask me, it's fine. Um, but I think sometimes people don't understand that it is okay to say things. It's not like we said earlier, it's not just a sore topic. It's our life. So
Yeah.
um, yeah. But I think that pretty much hits on everything I talked about in the story. It was a pretty long article, but I could have kept on going. Like there are a lot of more things I could have said, but hopefully just through this article and through this podcast, we can kind of start a conversation about people with disabilities and how they should be treated and just kind of help normalize it as well, like we said.
Yeah, I think one of the most important things is just talk about it and, like you said, start a conversation, you
Mhm.
know?
Yeah. And I think at the end of the day, like the world needs more people with kindness and more understanding. And no one's held to perfection, but like just showing etiquette is showing that you care, really. Like showing that you're trying and like that you try to have empathy for that person, try to understand where they're coming from, is all that I would ask of somebody else. And so yeah, um, I think if there's more kindness and less like judgment for people with disabilities, I think we're on track. Thanks to everybody for tuning in to episode 4 of the Rare It's Us podcast, where I said need to pray. Join me from Texas to talk about an article I wrote on disability etiquette this past semester for the Auburn Plainsman. And if you want to check out the article, is on theplainsman.com under opinion. You can also find it on my website at noah.blog, KNOW, noah.blog, which I'll leave down in the description. And you can subscribe there to get access to all my blogs, all of the podcasts, and also works. My journalism works from all the reporting I did over my college career. Don't forget to also go check out Sydney's work on all of her social media platforms. It's Sydney Dupre, Dupre, which I will also link down in the description. Also, if you want to learn more about FA, the condition we live with, which is Friedreich's ataxia, rare neuromuscular disease, visit curefa.org. And as always, I want to thank you guys for tuning in, but I also want to thank the guys who made this happen. Jesse Shelby, our producer, and one of our biggest sponsors, and supporters, Justin Ballou, and another one of our biggest supporters, Aunt Billy Holbrook. This episode would not be possible without them. So I want to say a big thank you. And man, this episode, it was a pleasure. It was a lot of fun. And as always, I invite your questions or feedback. I would love to discuss it with you or discuss it on a future podcast episode. So hit me with your deepest questions. Until next time, keep fighting.
Make a perfect gift for Christmas. Just saying.